Festival in the town of Bishoftu in the Oromia region. After some protesters chanted anti-government slogans, police fired tear gas and rubber bullets, and in the ensuing stampede, several people suffocated and fell into a ditch. Authorities say 52 people were killed, but protesters put the death toll much higher than that. Well, I've got more on the situation in Ethiopia with Felix Horn, the Ethiopia senior researcher for Human Rights Watch, and I asked him about the roots of the anti-government anger in the Oromia region.
The protests that started in November were very much about the concern from Oromos that they would be displaced from the expansion that was happening to the capital, to Addis Ababa, something that has been happening over the last 10 years. Very quickly, when security forces would meet those peaceful protests with violence, the concerns of the protesters shift to decades of concerns over discrimination against the Oromo, of lack of economic opportunities, of the various human rights abuses that we've seen during the protests, which includes the use of live ammunition against the protesters, mass arrests, and torture and detention. So what happened on Sunday was very much, there was a lot of tension that had been built up over the previous months on both sides. So it took a very small trigger to cause such panic in such a large crowd.
And we've seen in other regions of Ethiopia too, anti-government feeling, anger building up, frustration among ethnic groups at the ruling classes. How serious is the situation?
I mean, it's very serious. I mean, this is the biggest human rights and political crisis since this government came to power. And what is a real concern is that every time people go out to protest peacefully, to express legitimate grievances, security forces meet this with violence. And that just guarantees that there'll be future protests and future bloodshed. So it's a real critical time. It's not the point of no return yet, but it's getting close to that point where there's such mistrust of government that any concessions that the government would make might be too little too late.
Where do you see this going from here? Are these just isolated protests or more of a movement? Do you see it escalating from here?
Yeah, I definitely see it escalating. I mean, in Oromia, it's been quite consistent since November. There's been different peaks and valleys, but the protests have been quite consistent. What we feared is that if things did get violent at the Irecha cultural festival, which is such an important event for Oromo, that we would see an uptake in the amount of protests. And that's certainly what we have seen today. There's been protests all across Oromia, various reports of killings at the hands of security forces coming in. So it's a very worrying juncture for Ethiopia.